Hello.
Hello.
So you guys already know Rae. So this is Rae Hurst, if you don't know already, who works here at the LV Life Wellbeing Centre, amongst other places that she works, as a counsellor. So Rae and I were having a good chit chat the other day, a bit of a rant really, about spirituality and, well, actually we were kind of talking also toxic positivity, and we were kind of then thinking, how does that link to spirituality and what has spirituality become? And then, you know, Ray's like, oh, I don't like that word. So we thought we need to talk about this.
Yes.
And so here we are. So I'll let Rae just share her thoughts for a second.
Well, like Luke said, it was a bit of a rant, but I guess some of it, and some of it's informed by conversations I have with people who come to see me, but that the word spirituality and some of the beliefs, some of the attitudes are almost the same as what people see in religion. And that, you know, my experience, from people telling me, and some of it from personal experience, is that if there are particular spiritual beliefs or spiritual ways of being, if you're not aligned to them, then you're kind of, you're kind of pushed out. You're kind of
like an exclusive club.
Yes, yeah, very much so, like an exclusive club, and can leave people feeling really lacking. And so I just find it really interesting that where that's this whole idea of spirituality, which is meant to be, so much more, in theory, inclusive and holistic and more than religion, is mimicking in so many ways all the things that are not liked in that concept of religion. And that's where, also that positivity stuff comes in.
So I've been thinking a lot lately, and actually it's something that I've written down on my to-do list, is to write about my term, spiritual sheep dipping.
Ooh, say more.
Yeah, and I think if we go to positivity and we look kind of Law of Attraction 101, for example, like a lot of us find our path usually through something like yoga or Law of Attraction or something, and then we expand and we grow. But it almost feels like in those early days, and I recognise this for a lot of people, including myself, we go through this sheep dipping process of, or I must think positive, and I must reframe how I think, or I must have a gratitude journal, and it's almost like not hazing, but it's like the introduction to, it's the things that the rite of passage if you want to start to explore this stuff. But I find a lot of it, particularly the positivity aspect stuff, really deeply contradictory to the way that we live as humans, because there's so much value in the negative, in the dark, in the pessimism. That's where we learn our lessons. That's where our fight or flight instinct comes from. That's where we experience crap but grow from it. And then, of course, we can move on to the positive side and do something useful with that stuff. But to live wholly in the positive, that tends to, what I've observed, is what happens when people discover this stuff. They then go into la-la land and have to only live in the positive all the time. And I think that's not real. We're then ignoring or suppressing or trying to reframe all of the bad stuff in life. But surely life is about a balance of the both.
Yes, totally. And I think the danger is when we do that positive negative thing, we invite judgment straight away. Yeah. Judgment of ourselves, and which is what I hear with people. I ought to be positive all the time, because I'm following the spiritual path. And actually, as humans, we've got that capacity for every single emotion going. And maybe it isn't about thinking positively or negatively. Maybe what it is about being able to deal with life, whatever comes up, as it shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And some days it's a bit more challenging. Some days it runs smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
But being curious about what makes a difference between those two,
Mm-hmm.
but not framing it in that positive or negative way.
But viewing it as just an experience of what's happening. It's just part of life.
Because life will continue whether we participate in it or not.
Yeah.
We think as humans, we do think we're very important, don't we?
It's a bit of an illusion that we're actually in charge of it all as well.
I know. And it's kind of like, well, what happens if we take our hands off the wheel?
Yeah.
It's still going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes, we are so sort of caught up in that I've got to think positively, only positive things, do this, do that, because we believe that we're in charge of it all. And then we invariably, this happens, that people reach a point where, they just can't sustain that. And as one person said to me this morning, I broke.
Yeah.
I just broke.
And how many people can recognise that? I've certainly been there.
And that's when you realise, actually, I am not in charge of any of this.
Yeah.
So all this energy that's going into being positive and being spiritual, what's that all about?
I get a lot of people that come to me and say, I've been doing all this for years. I've been doing my affirmations, and I've got, I think positive, and I reframe, and everything that we talked about. I've been doing it all for years, and nothing's changed. I'm still miserable. I'm still not achieving what I want. And that's because we've been told that X, Y, and Z will work. We've believed that X, Y, and Z will work. We've seen other people's examples of it working. But there's still something that's disconnecting with us as the person. It's still not happening for us. And then we start judging ourselves. We start thinking, well, good things aren't meant for me. And then sometimes we can go in the total reverse and say, oh, it's all a bunch of crap, and I shouldn't have, it's all rubbish, and what was I thinking? I've been kidding myself. But I think the truth is that we're all totally different.
Yes.
And to think that because one method has worked for one person, that it's going to work for me, I find a little bit ridiculous, actually, in some respects, because no single human has the same experience through their life, not even twins.
And it's not just, again, depending on belief, but you could say it's not just your experience in this life.
Absolutely,
your DNA brings in experience from myriads of lives, doesn't it, in a sense?
And there's two. I recently had this conversation with someone. There's kind of two sides to that. In science, they're talking about how we can bring stuff through us, through our cells, from up to 7 generations back.
Wow.
And then in spiritual perspective, we talk about living many different lives and bringing that stuff back through past lives. Mm-hmm. So again, I think that this is another opportunity where science and spirituality are saying a similar thing, but they're approaching it from different angles. Mm-hmm. But I think that I'm not going to say everyone's going to agree, but I think the majority, and particularly if you're watching this, you probably agree that we aren't just who we are in this physical life. There's still aspects of other stuff that comes through us, even if that's just simply conditioning through your parents or society or whatever. We're still bringing stuff that isn't belonging to us in this physical human, in this physical life, that it's come from somewhere else. So we're always working with this big mixed bag of stuff all the time.
Yes. Yeah, and maybe there's something in there about, when we do that seeking, or when we kind of step into that spiritual world, and where that label came from and how it's stuck, I don't know. I'm really curious about that, but it's definitely become a label like religion, that we're looking outward rather than inward, even though a lot of people who are in that realm are talking about perhaps inward-looking things? Is it that we are looking outward for those people to sort us, do something? A little bit like, if I go to church every Sunday and say my prayers, and I'm not dissing any religious beliefs at all, but there's something in there about, well, if I tick all those boxes, job done, I'm a good person.
Yeah.
But what that doesn't do is invite me to explore the uniqueness of myself and the light and shadows of myself. And even religion it invites you to kind of, always think nice thoughts and be,
Yeah.
So I just think there's something about how things get skewed. It's that balance, and you're right, about we are all different. So, if someone's talking about their experience of, I do my affirmations every morning, and that brings me an amazing day, and everything runs smoothly. You think, fantastic, that's brilliant that works for you. But I'm different, it might not work for me.
Exactly, what is going to work for me?
Yeah. And so it's, there's a plethora of things out there.
It's endless, but you have to, I think, not to bang on too much about what I do, but I explore human design, as you know, and I really resonate with it because it says, based on your unique birth chart, these are the best ways for you to get the best out of your life. And that is not the same as the person that sat next to you, or a person that you're related to, or someone else that's doing really well in the world. It's a unique set of tools for our lives. And so I've resonated with that. But again, it's still an external factor, and I do think I think life is geared up like that these days. That's how we're conditioned. We must look for someone else or something else to make the repair.
Yes.
Or to make us feel whole, or to whatever. But I think it's always about finding the tool that is most valid for you and is right for you and your unique set of circumstances, rather than saying, well, it seems to be what everyone's talking about and it seems to be working for them, why isn't it working for me?
Yes.
Because it just invites these constant layers of judgment.
Yeah. Oh, there must be something wrong with me, I'm not doing it right.
All this failure mindset, because affirmations aren't working for you. I'm like, great, well, they work for me, but you're a different person.
And it's a little bit like, there's that belief, and you often hear it, that when that we create our world, and to a major extent I do believe that, but there is something around when absolutely horrible things happen to very vulnerable people or children.
I think, why would I create that?
Yeah. So, and I have heard it, that throwaway line of someone is talking about, and sometimes really tricky stuff, abuse or whatever it may be, in terms of, well, I must have done something to attract that. Actually, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But getting caught in that spiritual realm of this is what is said, this is what is believed, that I create that, that really invites that person, again, as you say, to really berate themselves. I've created a shit life for myself,
and I must deserve it.
Yeah, I must deserve it. Yeah. And no, it's so tangled, isn't it? Because there is also that, that kind of vibrational thing that we certainly, things come into our sphere. Mm-hmm. We don't have to hold on to them. We don't have to pick them up. We don't have to kind of use them. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, as you can tell, we're playing with this. We're debating it. We're considering it, because there is no simple answer. But I think for me, the biggest thing is about that continual being curious and questioning. Like, not just accepting something because that's what everyone's saying or that's what everyone's doing. You know, if you think of children, they're always curious. They're always like, so what does it do? Why does it move like that? And what's that for? And, you know, those incessant questions like, well, why?
Yeah.
And what's that for? And we forget to do that often as adults.
Because we switch to judgment instantly.
Yeah. We lose that ability, you know, because that, in a sense, is a debating process, isn't it? That why and what's it for and where does it go and how does that work? That's all debating and it's really exciting stuff. But yes, we go to, oh, I can't do that. That must mean there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. And so I want to kind of touch back on we create our reality. Not a phrase that I tend to use. And in this lifetime, I think when horrible things happen, of course we're not intentionally inviting that stuff to ourselves unless we are in a mindset of, or even a subconscious mindset of, you know, sabotaging our lives. That's a different thing. But, you know, I guess I've been taught through spiritual practice that we live many lives and perhaps there's some karma coming from other lives. And we talk about karma, I think, a little bit wrong. We kind of say it's like what goes around comes around.
Yes.
Yeah. But, you know...
because if you're horrible, you're going to get it in the next life.
Yeah, or even in this life, you know. But what are your views on that karmic principle?
Good question.
Because for me, that's what, when we say we create our reality, for me, that's what my mind goes to. It must be karma.
I think there's a lot in... we rock up in this body, in this world, in this moment, and it's about, oh, what can I learn from this? So I suppose that's karmic, because there's every person, every interaction, every, you know, relationship, whether that be friends, family, intimate, all of that can teach us more about ourselves. So I guess the exciting part is that every time that happens in a lifetime, we're learning more about ourselves. And peeling back the layers from ourselves. So yeah, until ultimately, what? I don't know. Do we end up as a an ascended being, a ball of light? I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows.
No, we may never know.
No. But the exciting part is that opportunity.
So for me, I think karma is not the physical thing. It's not the horrible stuff that happens in life. I don't believe that that's our karma. I believe our karma is about the lessons that we need to learn. And I don't know if the horrible stuff is interlinked with that, or if it's just shit happens, because that's what life is like. I mean, again, we may never know.
No.
But I don't like to think of, if I'm experiencing something awful, that it's part of my karma.
Yes, it's like...
Because then, you know, it's almost defeatist in that respect, isn't it? It's like, oh, it's all my fault, whatever.
Yeah, and I do think shit does happen. And I suppose if you look at the natural world, right, I'm pretty sure, and we like to make ourselves separate from nature in some way, you know, that we're way more evolved than the trees and the birds and the plants.
We are still mammals.
I don't know, but when I look at, you know, our dog, say, I don't think he thinks, oh, you know, I ended up as a rescue because, you know, it's my karma because I'd been a horrible dog in a previous life and this is how I turned up. So why... I suppose it's like maybe we over-complex
It's our brain getting in the way.
Yeah. and we create stories around it, those narratives. Maybe it just is. Maybe it just is that sometimes shit does happen. But the other bit of that is, the opportunity to learn about ourselves through that. So, it doesn't mean that I deserve that, but how have I responded to it? And how have I come out of it? Without judgment, because
the hardest part.
Yeah, I know, and that's this again, isn't
Yeah.
it? Again, if you look at the natural world, I don't observe any. I mean, it's a bit hard with plants, I suppose, but if you look at cats and dogs and things, I don't observe them judging themselves.
See them. I mean, it sounds silly to say, but you don't observe them thinking, really. Everything I feel that animals do feels intuitive.
Totally intuitive. They respond, and I think they're way more intuitive than we are.
We're probably born that way, and then we lose it, is my view.
Because
this taught out of us, our brain kicks in.
Yeah, and actually, this is the. It's both helpful and unhelpful because we're taught from such a young age. Those phrases. Think about it.
Stand in the corner and think what you do.
Use your head. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
We're not encouraged to come away from that and go. How does it feel when you do that?
I don't know if I recall any time in my childhood when I was asked how do I feel. It was always think.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've done something naughty, right? Go and think about what you've done. And at school, it's all think.
It's all brain training.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
There is a school of thought that.
I like that. Yeah. There is a school of thought.
That our gut actually holds more useful information and abilities than our brain. So really we should be thinking isn't the right word, but using our gut, our heart, and then our brain last, rather than brain, heart, gut.
Totally, and I frequently talk to people about this, within the work that I do, and I think I've said it on another live chat that the Australian Aborigines, that's how they experience the world, and they will say that our kind of more Western culture, that's the issue, is that we start with the head, and we engage with the world and each other through the head. And often we don't even get the chance to get to the heart or the gut.
Yeah.
And yet, when we get out of our own way, in terms of out of the head, there'll be times when you meet somebody and you instinctively have a feel about them. I mean, you were telling me something earlier about if something feels right in terms of an individual. That isn't a head thing. That's a heart and gut thing.
Yeah.
And we can develop that, by playing with it. And I think it's great. You can start to play with it just in everyday things. I don't know, even something as simple as, get up in the morning. Do I want a cup of tea? Do I want a cup of coffee? Tune in. Put your hand on your gut. What's it telling you? It will never, ever, ever steer you wrong at all. How can it? Because it's
not thinking.
It's not thinking. It's connected to every part of your organism. And it really, if you think of lots of indigenous people and the way they engage with the world, and us in our kind of developed westernized world go, oh, that's so lovely, that they do that. But actually, they are far more connected to the whole world around them, to the earth, to nature, to the rhythms of life, than we ever will be, because we we get caught in here.
We thought it out of our system.
Yeah. And then so we come back to this whole being able, dividing things into good and bad and positive and negative and right and wrong, and then using those to judge ourselves and judge others, and more often we judge ourselves more greatly than we judge others, and using those as beating sticks. So if we could just take this out, I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, there's a book that I read, and it was about somebody had a health condition, and I want to say stroke, but I don't think it was that. It was something that actually it affected them neurologically. And they went on to write a book about how, without that thinking part working in the way that it usually does, all these other bits grew and developed, and how they were able to, I really wish I could remember the name of it, how they were able to be far more tuned into people, and also without language as well. That's the other thing, because language is very powerful, but it gets caught up in this thinking part.
It's also very powerfully misunderstood.
Yes, yeah. So sometimes it can be helpful if we just maybe spend time, spend a day interacting with minimal language and kind of checking in with our gut, what's it saying? Where do I want to be at this moment? What do I need at this moment? And just sticking your hand on your gut and going, at this moment, what do I need? And sometimes the most surprising things come up and you think, oh, really? And that's the head that the gut then goes, really?
Yeah.
But if we followed that, how healthy that would be. And that's not about right or wrong, it's not making a judgment. If you said, oh, what do I need right now? And your gut's going, actually, what you need to do is lie on the floor over there for 20 minutes. The head might go, well, I've got stuff to do, I can't do it, I'm in the middle of a live talk here. But that's what your gut's telling you.
I think possibly we're just so busy and so committed in the modern world that, as you say, I can't go and lay on the floor for 20 minutes, I'm alive. But we don't even have the opportunity to tune in to what we want because we're too busy, we're too distracted.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we're so busy, you're right, we are really busy and really distracted. And yet, if we come back to this whole idea of this, this multi-million-pound industry called spirituality, we find time for that.
So we'll buy into it.
Yeah, it's almost we outsource to that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is a really interesting context. It's almost like, well, I haven't got time. I haven't got time to listen to my gut, and if it tells me to go lie on the floor for 20 minutes, but I have to go to my whatever class, or and that's, again, it's not saying that there's a right or a wrong, but it's just that being curious about outsourcing to other things. And not allowing ourselves to have that time. The hour that I outsource to, say, your meditation class, I could also be checking in with myself and listening to what my gut's saying, and it might say, actually, for an hour, go and lie in the bath. Whatever. It's just fascinating that we find it. And it's generalising when I say we, but that we find it okay to do that, but not to listen to ourselves. It's okay for me to come and listen to, I came to a talk just recently, which was interesting because it challenged me in so many ways in terms of what was talked about. But it's like, it was okay for me to come to that, but not to maybe think, maybe for that hour and a half, what I needed was to sit quietly wrapped in a blanket with a book. I just find it really interesting.
I went for coffee with my friend this morning, as you know. I'm not going to say her name, but I'm going to call her out a little bit because I was making fun of her as we were walking to the coffee shop because she spent £32 on a journal. And I think she's been putting off buying this for a long time. She was like, it's too expensive, I don't need it, it's a gimmick, and then she still went and spent the £32 on it. And so we were kind of having a joke about that. But it's fascinating, isn't it? Me spending this £32 is going to give me this thing that's going to make me be more conscious, or be more have more self-care, or dedicate time to myself, or or we could just do those things rather than diarising.
Yes, yeah.
I know, it's fascinating.
It is, and
she's going to tell me off after this because I know she's
he's probably on there sending you a message already. And there isn't a right or a wrong, is there? But it's that curiosity of the value of things, and also what are we expecting from something. So you could say, okay, I'll go and spend £32 on a journal because it's beautiful. I love it. It looks, the cover's nice, and that's why I'm getting it. Or am I spending £32 on that journal? And I'm sorry, Luke's friend, but
she's got a sense of humour.
Because I have an expectation that it's going to it must be amazing because I'm spending that much on it. It's going to help me. It's going to do the job for me. Yeah. So it is around that kind of what you're wanting from it, isn't it? It's like, if I come to your meditation class,
emojis on that.
if I come to your meditation class, am I coming because I just really enjoy the time and the space, and whatever might come up, or am I coming because I believe that Luke's going to fix me, Luke's going to kind of sort me out,
outsourcing the fix.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is really interesting, and it's there really isn't a right or wrong in all of this. It just is about continually being curious and challenging, I think, ourselves, but also challenging stuff out there, which comes back to that idea of toxic spirituality and toxic positivity. There is absolutely nothing wrong with challenging that. It's when we kind of accept everything as okay that we're in danger, I think. That's when we've lost our uniqueness and our individuality.
So a healthy dose of questioning.
Always a healthy dose of questioning. Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And remembering, going back to, children, we have that knocked out of us when we get to school. So let's try and get some of that back.
Yeah.
That constant curiosity, the internal, well, why? What do I want from that? Why am I choosing to do that? What am I hoping from that? We're just constantly asking those internal questions, because that will be more beneficial, I think, than the, I'll come to your class and you can fix me. Because actually, none of us
can fix anyone.
And I say that, I say this completely as a therapist. I can't fix anybody. I can walk alongside you and point out stuff and go, but I can't fix you.
Yeah. Because
actually, you're not broken.
Yeah, that's good.
You're not broken.
And just having a human experience.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are having a human experience.
I like that. That's a good quote to end on, isn't it? You're not broken, you're having a human experience.
I like that very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rae Hurst, everybody.
And Luke.
I'm not going to try and pronounce my last name, no.
Voulgarakis.
Oh, well done. Oh, thank you. It was a good conversation. I like that.
I did as well. I hope whoever was listening enjoyed it, and that it made you curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, bye everyone.